Hey, today we get to practice solving equations, but we get to do it in a kind of a little bit more fun way, I think. We are going to play a game of Battleship. Now, it's going to look a little different than if you've ever played the Battleship board game, where you put the pegs on and you hit and miss and talk to each other and try to drop bombs on each other. It's going to look a little bit different than that in order to make this work. But what you all need to have is you need to have your Battleship game board. So you can either print the one that I have in there, or you can get it from me if you're at school. Or, I mean, look, all it is a grid. This would be very easy also to just format on your own paper. If you can't print it, that's okay. You can just make yourself a grid. What you need on your Battleship game board is you need to make sure you have a column that says A through E, and then make sure you put that blank spot there. And then across the rows, do you see how we have negative integers from -5 to 0 up to +5? So that is what you need.
Prince Fisher, please come to the office.
That is what you need to play this game. Now I'm going to show you how to set up your game board. So if you need to pause me and print this or draw it out or whatever, that's okay. But right now I'm going to show you how we set this up. Here is my game board. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to set up my game board. You want to do the similar thing to what I'm doing, but you don't want to put your stuff in the exact same place as I do, because then I would know exactly where your ships are, and then I would know exactly where to drop my bombs and sink your ships. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example here, but obviously your game board should look different from mine when you're done. So you're just going to do one of each of these ships listed down here. So it says carrier is 5 spaces. That's going to be your biggest ship. So if you've ever played Battleship, you actually have the ships on the pegs and you stick them in there. We're going to modify that. Now you can draw your ships either horizontally or vertically. You just can't draw them diagonally. Okay, so if I want to put a carrier on here that's 5 spaces, and I don't need to make this fancy or anything, I just need to show where it is. So I might go, I don't know, right here and show, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. And that's my carrier. I don't have to be some fancy artist. I just have to show where it is. Now, I also wouldn't fill that in, because as Mrs. McGowan drops the bombs, that's one modification on this game, is I have all the bombs. Isn't that exciting? I get to drop them all. So as I drop the bombs here, and you'll see how we're going to do that, you'll mark off where the bomb fell somehow. So with a big X or filling it in or something. And so you don't want to have these filled in. Otherwise, you won't be able to mark it off anyway on what location I dropped the bomb. So leave it open like that. Just draw an oval. Now, this is where I put my carrier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. That's all that matters, is that it's 5 spaces. You could totally put it somewhere else. You could put it this direction if you wanted to, vertical or horizontal. Just make sure it's 5 spaces. So I did my carrier. I'm going to do a battleship, which is 4 spaces. Maybe that will come over here. Again, you should not be copying my location. You put it wherever you want so that your game card is unique. Your game board is unique from mine. So that I don't know where your ships are. I'm not supposed to know where your ships are. Submarine is 3 spaces. I'm going to know right here. Again, you put yours wherever you want. And then I need a destroyer, which is 2 spaces. Maybe I'll go right there. So this is what my game board looks like. Yours should look different than mine. In fact, yours will probably look different than everyone else's. Everyone should have a pretty unique game board. We might end up with a ship or 2 in the same place, but probably no 2 students drew the same game board. So you've got your ships set up, okay? Now, what do you need now? Now you need a piece of paper. So I'll give you a second to get out a piece of paper. You're also going to take that piece of paper and set it up the way that we have on all of our practice problems, all of our Canvas quizzes. So you've got your game board here. I'm going to set mine aside because you don't need to look at mine. You need to just have yours. And then see what I did to this piece of paper? I took my piece of paper and I did what we've done on all of these. I folded it in half once vertically, just to give me 2 columns, to give me a little more space, a little bit more organization in my work. And then you can open it back up and you can give it a title. This page is Solving Equations Battleship. Okay, so I am going to do a few of these with you right now, just to make sure we understand how the game is played and we understand what we're trying to do as far as the math, as well as what are we doing in this battleship game. So I'm going to give you an equation and you're all going to call it number 1 and you're going to write it down right here. All right. The first equation I am going to give you is 2a. You should be writing this down with me. Here, I'll zoom in a little so you can see it better. Maybe a little bit more. Here we go. Okay, so this is number 1. 2a plus 25 equals 15. So of course, mathematically, our goal today is to practice solving equations, specifically solving two-step equations. We're going to make sure by the end of today that we're all feeling really good about solving two-step equations. We're going to add a little element to it though. So let's go through our process of solving an equation. Remember, as we practiced and learned yesterday, you have the variable over here, and now there are two things happening to it. There are two operations that need to be canceled or turned to 0. And remember, you always start with the additive inverse. So think about this. What are you going to do first? We're going to turn the 25 to 0. You want to turn something to 0 first? So look at the side with the variable and decide, what does it make sense to turn to 0? It doesn't make sense to turn the 2 to the 0 because it's stuck to the variable. It makes sense to turn the 25 to a 0. Whatever I do to the Adeline side, I also need to do to the Penelope side. That turns to 0, which is exactly what I wanted. Now I have 2a equals, watch your signs here. The positives and negatives always matter. But if you get the wrong positive or negative, that's really going to affect your game board, and it's really going to affect what happens in your Battleship game. So watch your positives and negatives. So this is different signs subtract, take the sign of the one that goes farther. If you need to type that part in your calculator to verify, that's fine, but make sure you watch those positives and negatives. So that's negative 10. Now I'm ready to do the multiplicative inverse, divide by 2, and I turned that into 1. And now I get a equals negative 5. So I just solved that equation, which is an important first step. But what does that have to do with my game board? Well, guess what I just did here? Actually giving you that equation was me dropping this bomb on your Battleship game board. So when I give you an equation, you have to solve it to find out where I just dropped the bomb. A equals negative 5 means, if I come back to my game board here, here's my game board. A equals negative 5 means I come on my grid to row A, and I come to column negative 5, and this is where I just dropped a bomb, which is either a hit or a miss. On my game board, it was a miss. Obviously, I'm not playing against myself, I'm playing against you guys, but this is just an example here. So I don't know, did I hit one of your ships or did I miss them all? Okay, and my goal, I'm going to keep giving you bombs, and my goal is going to be to sink at least one of your ships. Now, it's me playing against all of you, so that the odds of me sinking all of your ships are not good. I would have to drop all the bombs on this whole thing for probability-wise that to happen. But my goal is to try and sink one of your ships. So what does it mean to actually sink a ship? Well, that means I would have to hit, like in order to sink your carrier, I would have to hit all 5 spots. Your ship is not sunk unless all of them are hit. So in order to sink this submarine, I would have to hit all 3 spaces. Okay, so we're going to go through a few more together, and then I'll explain how you're going to finish this Battleship game. All right, so number 2, I'm going to come over here. I'm now going to drop another bomb. Are you ready? Let's do this one. See, if I were in class, this is challenging for me, because if I were in class, I would ask you guys, if you were all here with me, I would say, who did I hit? And then I'd use that to decide. So now I just have to kind of use my own strategies and guess. So I'm going to go here, d over 5 plus 8 equals 7. You guys write that down. This is my next bomb. All right, we're going to do additive inverse first. What should I turn to 0? I should turn this 8 into 0. And then I do the same thing to the other side. And then I go d over 5 equals 7 minus 8 is negative 1. Watch your signs closely. Different signs subtract, take the sign one that goes farther. And now I got to turn this into 1 by times by 5 times by 5. And it bothers me that those aren't lined up, so I'm going to write it over here. D equals negative 5. D equals -5. So where did I just drop a bomb? I just dropped a bomb at D, -5. Did I hit your ship or did I miss them all? Okay, let's keep going. I'm gonna do 8 of these with you, and then I'm gonna explain what you need to do after that. Because certainly, if I only drop 8 bombs, that is not enough. I'm not gonna sink anybody's ships with that. So here I go, number 3. Number 3 says -b plus 13 equals 18. Okay, did you write that down? Make sure you wrote that down. Now, which value does it make sense to turn into 0? The 13. I'm going to do the additive inverse. I want to focus on the side with the variable, and I want to focus on turning something to 0 that makes sense to turn to 0. Minus 13. Come and do the same thing on the other side. Those are now 0. Now look what I have here. I'm going to rewrite this because a lot of students look at this. We get confused by this one still. -b means -1b. Write it like that so that your brain processes what you're looking at. 18 minus 13 is +5. Okay, this is multiplying by -1. So if they're multiplying by -1, you should divide by -1. Okay, b equals -5. You guys starting to see my strategy here? Maybe? Come back over to your game board. B -5 is what I just gave you. And some of you are seeing my strategy and going, oh, shoot. Maybe some of you, I'm going to sink a ship right now. And maybe some of you are like, phew, she's in totally the wrong area. That's all right. Here we go. Number 4. Number 4. This is your next bomb. Are you ready? You ready? We're going to have to solve it and find out where I'm dropping it. Some of you might be able to guess what I'm doing here. -16 equals 4c plus 4. All right. Ooh, okay. This time the variable is over here on the Penelope side. That doesn't matter. I'm still going to focus on the side with the variable. And I'm going to ask myself, where's the additive inverse? Which one makes sense to turn into 0? It needs to be on the side with the variable, but not actually stuck to the variable. Okay, so that's this 4 right here. I'm going to subtract 4, turn that to 0, and then I'm going to come over and do the exact same thing on the Adeline side. Once on each side to keep this additive inverse even. That turns to 0. Ooh, careful over here, watch those signs. Same signs add, keep the common sign. Okay, -20 equals 4c. All right, now I'm ready to turn that 4 into a 1. So this 4 I turned into 0, this 4 I'm turning into a 1. Divide by 4, divide by 4. And I'm going to switch it around right now. C equals -20 divided by 4. Of course it's -5. All right, so I just dropped bombs in this entire section right here in the hopes that somebody's ship was over there. Maybe I sunk a ship. Maybe I almost sunk a ship. Maybe I'm nowhere near your ships. And maybe if that's the case, maybe I need to change locations a little bit. Maybe I need to change things up a little. All right, let's try this one. I'm gonna go with this equation. Let's do 15 minus, is with me? 15 minus 4e equals -2. So obviously you're gonna have a hint as soon as I write the equation down. You'll have a hint at least as to what row I'm on. And then when you look at the row, you might be like, oh, phew. Or you might be like, uh-oh, I got some ships in that row. So let's see what happens. All right, let's solve this one. Okay, here's the variable side. Which of these numbers does it make sense to turn into 0? Not the number stuck to the variable, the other one, right? Be careful. This 15, is it positive or is it negative? It's positive, right? This negative belongs with the 4. Belongs with the 4. So the 15, to turn it to 0, I need to do minus 15, and then I'm going to come over here and do minus 15. Okay, So that turns to 0. Be really careful right here. This is a very common mistake, and we want to try and work this out today as we practice. I'm going to bring down what's left, and I'm going to remember that that negative belongs with the 4. So I need to keep it with the 4 as I bring my work down. Okay, so negative 4e, look at this over here, be careful. Different signs. I feel like I probably wrote this down wrong. You guys tell why? It's supposed to fit somewhere on your card, and this one doesn't. So let's just fix that right there. That's a -1, not a -2. I could tell because, I mean, can you have decimal and fraction answers in equations? Absolutely. But in our Battleship game, can we? Probably not, because they wouldn't fit on the grid. All right, so -1 and -15 makes -16. Sorry, pretend that was a -1 all along. All right, now I'm going to go divide by -4 because I need to turn it to 1. So if they're multiplying by -4, you need to divide by -4. Divide by -4, do the same thing on the other side. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. E equals 4. That means I'm changing positions a little bit. I'm all the way over here at E4. I just hit my own ship, which doesn't matter because this is just an example game board. But I came over to E4. All right, let's try. We're going to do 3 more together. And actually what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to give you all 3 of them. And then I'm going to give you some time to try them. Okay, instead of just watching me go through it, I want you to try it first. So here is number 6. Let's see. I want to do, how about this one? -60 plus 40e equals 60. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to solve that one. Give it a try, guys. Where's the variable? Which one do you turn to 0? I'm just going to sit here and wait. You guys are solving it. Did you do it? Did you start like this? Plus 60 plus 60. Did you do that first? That's the one that should turn to 0. And then you have 40e equals 60 plus 60 is 120. This is why it's so important to show those inverse steps. Because sometimes when your brain originally looks at this equation, your brain thinks 0. It wants it to be 0 somehow because there's a -60 and a 60. Your brain just kind of does that. So you have to really train yourself to go, oh, I'm turning it into 0 over here, which means by the time I get over to the Penelope side, I'm doing 60 plus 60, which does not equal 0. All right, so I'm going to divide by 40, divide by 40, and E equals 3. I just dropped a bomb at E3. Mark it on your game board. Did I hate anyone? Have I sunk any ships yet? Okay, 2 more together. Here we go. Number 7. Let's move a little bit. Let's try this one. This one's a little different. 10 plus C over 2 equals 10. Okay, I'm going to let you guys try it. Take a minute. Find the side with the variable and decide what you should turn to 0. Where did I drop this bomb? So you should have started like that. But then watch what happens. Yes, you definitely want to turn that 10 to 0, but what happens is actually it also turns to 0 when you do the math on the Penelope side. That can totally happen. And then as you finish this off and you go, okay, I'm going to turn that to 1 by times by 2 times by 2. Well, 0 times 2 is still 0. The solution to that equation is 0. That is a completely valid solution that comes up a lot. Sometimes 0 is the only number that makes the equation true. And if you look at that, it makes sense here because 10 plus something equals 10. The only way that's going to work is if I put a 0 there. Okay. All right. Last one that we're going to do together, and then I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. I'm going to start off in a new section here. How about, did you mark this one on your game board, by the way? C0. There is a 0. It's right there in the middle. Okay. How about this one? Here's number 8. 15 minus 2D equals 21. Take a minute, solve it. Okay, watch closely here. Again, there's some common mistakes that I want to make sure you did not make. Did you turn this to 0 first? And did you turn it to 0 by doing a minus 15 because you recognize that 15 is positive? And then did you come over here to the Penelope side and do the same thing over there? Okay, so then we have negative 2D. Did you make sure and bring the negative 2 down with it? That's super important. Negative 2D equals 6. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. And D equals negative 3. Okay, we just did 8 of those together, and those are 8 that you have marked on your game board. Maybe I've already sunk a ship, maybe not. What you're going to do now is you're going to continue on this paper. You'll notice when you bring up your Canvas practice quiz for today, it actually starts with question 9. It says number 9. And that's because I want you to keep writing on this paper. You're going to keep getting two-step equations, bombs that Mrs. McGowan is dropping. You're gonna have to solve it on your own and not only mark it on your game card, but then type it into Canvas. And make sure you type the whole equation as we've been practicing with no spaces. So for this, you'd type C equals 0, no spaces. D equals negative 3, no spaces. You'll type it into Canvas. You'll also mark it on your game board. And then you'll tell me at the end of the Canvas quiz whether or not I sunk any of your ships and which ones. But most importantly, then you'll be able to submit your Canvas quiz and see if you are doing these right. So you're going to keep going, use this paper, click next, and then, well, answer the question first. And then you'll actually, what it is, it's not answer the question. It asks you to submit a picture of these 8 problems. So you'll submit a picture of these 8 problems that you've done so far. And then for the Canvas quiz, you'll keep going with question number 9 and keep writing on this paper. And it's totally possible that you'll use the front and use the back and maybe run out of space and need to use a separate paper. That's okay too. Most importantly though, if you have any questions or get stuck on any of these problems, please ask.